Hello, fellow accounting students and professor. My name is JT Tanj, and I'm presenting my case study to all of you. I have chosen case 2-3 titled the tax return. After you see the YouTube link that I provided in the slide, we have our situation, which here we have, after clicking on the slide, you see Miss Brenda. Hi, Brenda. How are you? She says she's pretty good, other than the fact she has a situation where she needs our help. She is a tax preparer and prepared a tax return for Mr. Kuhn, where he had some gambling winnings and some gambling losses. She submitted Mr. Kuhn's tax return to Vincent, who is her supervisor, to review the tax return, since she's still pretty new, from what we can tell. And he reported to Mr. Kuhn that Brenda was planning on reporting the gambling winnings on the tax return as required by tax code. Mr. Kuhn, from what Vincent says, does not like the idea and told Brenda that she should take the gambling winnings off the tax return. She was conflicted because she knows that he should report it since his tax code does require that all income is reported by law. But Vincent was pushing her to do so, and she was still confused in regards to that he had gambling losses, which kind of leads to a little bit of a washout. So thus we have a little bit of a predicament where Brenda's trying to figure out whether she should accept as Vincent stated, a one-time deal of not reporting the income on the return, so that way Vincent and the firm is able to keep the client, or if Brenda should confront Vincent and basically say, no, this is not the right thing to do. The judgment that she has to make in regards to Kohlberg's 6 stages, some of the situations that is being faced is Vincent, I'm assuming, thinks that Brenda's a stage 1, where he thinks and probably wishes that Brenda will just listen to her supervisors. And he's testing the waters to see if she's able to do it, because if is such the case, he is actually able to lead more clients to her, because he knows that she will be able to lead Brenda astray into doing some more tax fraudulent things, or just tweak a little bit, because as we know, tax code sometimes can be black and white, but also can be a lot of gray, just depending on a personal interpretation, since there are some rules and regulations that does allow personal interpretation, or as the IRS interprets the tax code. Brenda, however, should be operating at least at a stage 4, which is the law and order, which, being a tax preparer, and then my assumption is that she's probably aiming to be a CPA or an EA. She has to live by a code of conduct, and to do so, that does require living by certain laws, rules, and regulations, so that way she can be unbiased and prepare taxes at an efficient level. She also does show traces of stage 5, which is social contract, since she does have to live those rules, laws, and societal rules of being a tax preparer, as stated by the IRS and, of course, federal law. She also does emulate some traces of stage 6 that she could exercise, which is the universal ethical principles, which those same rules, laws, and regulations are made by the IRS, which on a federal level are able to be followed by, or are and should be able to be followed by every tax preparer that does prepare and review tax returns, to make sure that everything is done correctly and efficiently, or effectively, However, to continue on with these judgments, we do see that Brenda the items in question can make a difference on Brenda. She can consider risk, which would involve her, Vincent, Mr. Kuhn, and even the firm. It's a pretty high risk to not report income. It is a washout, so I mean there is that balance where she has to determine where if there could be a risk of being caught, but at the same time too, there's also a risk of not being caught. However, she knows what she has to do in regards to reporting income because it is stated on the tax code. There is also a questionable one-time item in the thought process from Vincent, the client, and from what Brenda understands. So as stated in our textbook, that there is the mom rule, but we could imply the IRS as the mom rule of if the IRS or if an IRS agent were present, would Vincent allow such an item to be done? And in my guess, it'd probably be no. But there are also consequences of oath and lawful duty, which includes certifications. She may lose her certification. Vincent may lose his certification, and there could be some jail times, some fines, just normal consequences because there's tax evasion, there's preparing tax fraud, and then she just has to think in regards to which kind of stage she would have. But my assumption is she needs to be more at a level 4, just to make sure that things are done correctly and lawfully. However, in question 2, when he does counteract, or when Brenda does counteract Vincent to make sure that things are done right, and in her defense, she could consider the following items. As a counteract, she could just state her comfort level in regards to how she wants to prepare the tax return, because she may not even be comfortable with it at all, as it does state in the case study that she's not very comfortable with it in the first place because she kind of missed something big, but at the same time too, she also knows what's right from what it seems like. She could also discuss the federal law that just because income is not formally reported by a corporation or anything like that, it doesn't mean it's tax-free. And she could also ask Vincent in regards to how ethical standards may be set for the future for herself, Vincent, and the firm in regards to how things are going to be done in the future. And then once again, there's the mom rule that I stated on the previous slide. In Brenda's defense, she also could state that she would have a clear conscience by making sure that the gambling winnings are reported, because she would not have to worry about the stress of the risks or losing her job. There would also be either a temporary gain where she would actually only gain just a tiny bit in regards to maybe a bonus, or she may not even face any gain at all by just other than just having a job, but they're still at risk of not being able to have the clear conscience. And then she could also discuss with Vincent the small and simple things, or the small and first things, which from what it sounds like Brenda's case is a small and first thing, which would affect her greatly. Then there, in regards to question 3, where if she does happen to go along with Vincent, the question would be what she would do next year if she decides to fight it, for example. If Brenda were to fight back, she could remind him that the previous year there was a one-time event, and just due to the washout, but this year the following year there could be no reported losses, but revenue only, which would then have to be reported as income, because that would lead to tax evasion for sure, which is a huge consequence, has huge fines, and can lead to jail time. There is also just the many aspects of the consequences, whether it be the past, present, or future, because if it's next year's return, now she has past a fraudulent return that she has to consider. There's the IRS standards where the IRS could audit just the client, the tax return, the firm, the agents, such as Brenda and Vincent. They could also face jail time. In fact, there's even a CPA, or former CPA here in Utah, that had filed for 16 clients a year's worth of fraudulent returns to totaling about, if I remember, $83 million in tax refunds. And that CPA got caught, and to the point that when he was tried, he was actually faced up to 90 years in prison and had to pay up to $250,000 in fines. And I don't know about you guys, but I really don't want to pay $250,000 in fines. I think owning a house is much better, since it costs roughly about $250,000. And then there are also client consequences. There could be some people that could come to him because of the tax fraudulent, and they just don't want to report things because people have this mindset of the less I pay, the better. But I have heard from many consequences of where the more you pay, the better, because that means you're in a better financial situation. But as we see, and in my opinion, Brenda should stick with her guns and stick with stage 4 and not allow Vincent to push her like that, and to not do the one-time issue. And then the final slide that I have right here are my references. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Thank you.